Ever since he was a child, little Jogigi possessed a killer-speaking ability. Then one ordinary day like any other, Jogigi was sitting asleep on the bus waiting to reach the next tourist spot. However, when he opened his eyes, the scene before him made Jogigi feel as if he had wandered into a fairyland. One of his female classmates was lying in a pool of blood, while another classmate was being skewered by a green dragon. Jogigi didn't have time to think much. He immediately stood up, grabbed the Micca and threw it at the dragon's tail. The throw seemed as gentle as a scratch, but unexpectedly it made the green dragon scream in pain as if pierced by 1,000 arrows. It angrily took off towards Jogigi and his friend Dano, but he simply talked a bit and the dragon died instantly. After finishing, he pretended it was a miracle, then picked up his device to continue playing games. Jogigi did this on purpose to help Dano calm down. He turned off the device and listened to her tell the story while he was asleep. The story was that as soon as the car exited the tunnel, on the other side was a vast green field. They hadn't yet figured out what was happening when a girl named Xion, claiming to be an imperial sage, boarded the car. The new teacher complained once and was made to disappear into thin air by her. First rule, do not make a fuss, you must listen to what she says. The driver seemed displeased, so Xion also sent him to the afterlife along with the teacher. Second rule, anyone here who annoys her will immediately meet their end. Xion introduced to all the students that this is another world and she summoned them here to be candidates for sages. Briefly speaking about sages, they are the rulers of the other world, the king of kings in every profession. Xion extended her hand to activate the special abilities and suitable professions hidden deep within each person. Everyone glowed except for the 4 people at the beginning of the film, including Dano, the main character who was sleeping, and 2 extras. Dano stood up wondering why she wasn't glowing, and Xion told her it was because she was useless. For people like her, if they don't become sages, they should become livestock to harvest magic power. Hearing this, her classmates not only panicked but also eagerly sought to understand the first mission. Of course, they were all chosen ones and were delighted with what they had. Unexpectedly, a person with leadership abilities stepped forward to call for cooperation from the chosen ones. He wanted to know everyone's abilities to easily plan how to tackle the first mission. All the chosen ones quickly got off the bus, leaving 4 people without abilities on it. Only Dano was willing to wake Jogigi up, while the other 2 insisted on letting him sleep there until he died. However, they were not allowed to get off the bus by the person with leadership abilities. The simple reason was that they were too useless and would become a burden to the chosen ones. The blonde-haired guy intended to resist, but that jerk lifted 2 chairs to demonstrate the enhanced strength of the chosen ones. Leaving those 4 behind was also part of his plan. He wanted to use them as bait for the dragon while the chosen ones escaped. After that jerk left, the dragon appeared and everything unfolded just like the scene at the beginning of the movie. However, the only thing Jogigi was concerned about was how there was no game charger in this world. Dano wondered if the dragon's death was because of Jogigi, but he insisted it was divine intervention. As soon as they stepped outside, Dano saw 3 entities flying in from afar. It turned out they were 3 classmates of Jogigi. Although he hadn't determined their purpose for returning, it was likely that he might have to kill them soon. Dano didn't want that to happen, but Jogigi reminded him of how they intentionally left the 2 of them for the dragon to kill. The 3 others were extremely surprised when they saw the dead dragon and then discovered that 2 people were still alive, starting with the chubby friend. He is a strong healer in terms of recovery abilities, but everything else is extremely weak. Next is the hero, a kid who possesses well-rounded attack and defense stats and notably can use all types of equipment and basic spells. Finally, there is the necromancer, a young man with the ability to turn the dead into zombies and control them at will. The hero had already launched a fireball that grazed past Dano's ear, shattering the hill behind him. The previous attack was just a display of power to intimidate Dano. Their goal is to turn Dano into a partner who will never marry. Jogigi realized that these brainless guys might be difficult to talk to, so he decided to exchange some moves. He pointed at the hero's face and told him, "Die." While the fat one was laughing maniacally, the hero collapsed face first onto the ground. They still didn't quite believe it, so he made the necromancer die right on top of his friend's body. With only the fat one left, he decided to explain his abilities. He allowed the fat one to heal his 2 friends to verify that his words were true. The fat one's healing ability could bring someone from the brink of death back to full health. However, this time was different. His friends were dead and could not be revived. Now Dano remembered the dragon incident. She wondered why Jogigi didn't tell her, to which he replied, "Explaining twice is a real hassle." The fat one still thought this was nonsense, so Jogigi suggested letting him try. He pretended to cry and beg, then secretly approached Jogigi intending to assassinate him. However, Jogigi immediately stopped the fat one. He had another ability that the fat one didn't know about, which was the ability to sense murderous intent. As long as anyone intends to harm Jogigi, he can sense it, and combined with his ability to speak and kill instantly, anyone intending to kill him would end up sacrificing themselves. Now the fat one obediently knelt down and recounted everything from start to finish. The reason the 3 newcomers were so confident was because a year ago, they were summoned here to defeat the Demon King. Although it was said to be a year, only a few hours had passed when they returned to the real world. After Jogigi learned that they could still return, the fat one was no longer of any use. He intended to kill him to prevent future troubles, so the fat one called out and begged. first pleading with him and then turning to plead with Dano. Dano wanted to leave the decision to Jogigi because he was the one who saved him. Realizing that using words to persuade was completely hopeless, the fat one took out the slave collar and begged to become Dano's slave. However, she didn't like having slaves, so she passed it over to Jogigi. The fat one sobbed because his scheme to become Dano's slave had failed. Jogigi saw that this guy was useless, so he decided not to kill him. He ordered him to run to the monster forest and wait there. The fat one begged Jogigi, because going there was no different from being killed by monsters. Although he didn't want to at all, once he wore the slave collar, the fat one was forced to reluctantly leave. Before leaving, he also demanded that he not tell anyone about him and leave behind everything of value. Thus, a year's accumulation of gold, silver, wealth, treasures and rewards were all snatched away by the Saint Jogigi. He decided that from now on he would protect Dano, which made her extremely puzzled. In fact, this young man didn't know why either, so he pondered for about 10 minutes. Dano suggested if it was because he liked her, to which he replied, "I like you now. Oh, I remember now. It was because Dano's chest was too soft when pressed against my hand as the dragon charged." All men are the same indeed. Dano's face turned red as she swore she would never trust men again. Meanwhile, Cyan was completely unaware that she was welcoming an unbeatable monster, so she was still casually hugging her pillow and sleeping. The guard appeared to announce that today 4 people had died, and those 4 were not all powerless individuals. 2 of them were even S rank. From the dragon to the deceased, the causes were unclear, so the guard suspected that someone possessed the power of sudden death. After a long and arduous walk, the unlucky couple finally arrived at the city where their classmates had passed through. In this other world, everywhere they went they encountered wicked people. They ran into an arrogant landlord who intended to harm Dano, scaring her so much that her face turned pale. In fact, it wasn't that she was afraid of him, but she was worried that Jogigi would get angry and send him to the afterlife with a single blow. After walking for a while, the two encountered a cute little cat. The cat recognized them as sage candidates and wanted to offer a little help by guiding them around the city. With the huge amount of money from the fat guy in the previous episode, Jogigi and Dano revamped their appearance to look like a young master and a fairy goddess. However, as mentioned above, in this other world wherever they go, they encounter bad people. It turns out the cat knew they had no abilities, so it lured them to a place with a gang of thugs to rob them. Their target was not only money but also sage candidates without abilities like Dano and Jogigi. Because those with abilities freely acted in the city, causing them resentment, they wanted to vent their stress on people from the same world as them. The gang of thugs promised not to kill the two but to torment them to the point where living would be worse than death. Dano, with a kind heart, advised the little cat to tell everyone to run away because Jogigi was outclassing the entire server, but she scornfully said they were scared to the point of madness. First, Jogigi declared he would deal with the group behind, causing those in front to start sweating profusely. With every question of what the hell he was doing, he killed another one. Killing too many isn't good, so he decided to issue a warning punishment. First, he tried to take the right ankle of the rooster-headed guy, but due to a technical error, he died on the spot. Then he moved to the left hand of the brown bear guy, but he failed again. Dano wondered why he hesitated, and he said he was practicing to see if there was a way to go easy on these guys. Jogigi continued to try, and on the third attempt he succeeded. The enemy's eyes were taken, causing him to writhe in pain. Suddenly he reconsidered, thinking that if he let them suffer before dying, he couldn't bear it. So Jogigi dealt with all of them except for the little cat and the ringleader. The little cat begged him for mercy because she had a hungry younger brother at home, but he couldn't sympathize with someone who hurt others because of their own pain. He pointed and told them to die, but they didn't. They thought his power had limits, so they happily turned and ran away. However, after running for a while, both suddenly dropped dead unexpectedly. God suddenly appeared from behind, asking about the cause of the bandits' deaths. They had been hiding all this time but didn't come out to help because they wanted them to be sold, and then followed to find out who was behind it. The captain confidently said that the guards were protected by a sage, so Jogigi's superpowers had no effect on them. However, another god, after an assessment, was certain that neither of them had superpowers, so they couldn't have killed the bandits. The captain, unable to say anything further, left in frustration, while the pink-haired guy stayed to apologize and then recommended an end to them. That night, while alone in the room, Dano wondered whether Jogigi really liked her, or if it was just because her two balls were soft. Suddenly, a spirit dressed in traditional attire appeared, scaring Dano out of her wits. She thought it was her sister, but who would have guessed it was actually the guardian spirit of the Dano family. She said she only appears in emergencies to save Dano. Dano asked why she didn't appear when she was about to be killed by the dragon, to which she replied that she was afraid of the boy Jogigi, so now that Dano was alone, she dared to show herself. She hopes that tomorrow Dano can tell him something so that he can help her avoid passing away, without having accomplished anything meaningful. The reason Dano didn't receive superpowers from the goddess is because she prevented it. Dano blamed her, but she didn't know that if she accepted it, it would also mean her life would be in the hands of the sages. Her mission is to protect Dano until he safely returns to the old world. From this moment on, she will teach her the family's secret martial arts techniques to help her increase her strength. To gain a better understanding of this world, Jogigi asked the hotel staff for assistance. She not only helped him locate and find the route of the classmates, but also booked tickets and modified a gaming machine. Jogigi entrusted her with a number of golden jewels to develop them for a beneficial purpose. That afternoon, both of them began boarding the train to the marked destination. Yogiki's classmates were currently both training in the primary forest and moving, so they weren't very fast. In just a split second, Jogigi unexpectedly pushed Dano down onto the seat. However, it wasn't because he was up to any mischief, but rather he foresaw danger and saved her life. Meanwhile, the gods had taken the only surviving bandit back to the sage's capital for treatment and study. The wound in his eye was beyond healing. Even if the sage were to recover or replace it with another pot, his vision could not be restored. This red-haired woman was Sage Lane, a vampire of the highest class of the undead. Lane resorted to the last method, which was to bite the thief. Those who directly receive blood from Lane experience extraordinary enhancement in physical abilities and recover from all fatal wounds. However, the result remained unchanged. Even with Lane's blood, he did not regain his eyesight, not even a little. The incident of the ship being split in half was merely an accident due to the battle between the sage and the invader, not intentionally targeting either side. The invaders from another world are referred to as robots that are as beautiful as Transformers. Dano asked Jogigi about how to handle the robots, but he has his own set of rules. He doesn't kill everyone, and he doesn't kill just because someone annoys him. He won't use incantations at times like these to avoid indiscriminate killing. As soon as Jogigi finished speaking, the young sage unexpectedly attacked the townspeople, leaving most of them incapacitated. Meanwhile, a hero, driven by hatred for the sages, charged alone into Lane's stronghold to deal with her. However, the vampire's regenerative abilities are nearly absolute. No matter how many times the hero swung his sword, Lane would recover completely. The vampire's body is almost immortal, so Lane couldn't die even if she wanted to. With a determination to annihilate the sage, the hero summoned the divine sword, causing Lane's stronghold to explode into dust. In another development, Jogigi is questioning the sage about why he attacked the people. Perhaps even in death, he could not have imagined it. He claimed that the lowly commoners should kneel before the sage to show gratitude. If they couldn't fulfill that simple duty, then they deserved to die. Our ancestors were right. All great disasters start from the mouth. Because of this foolish statement by the sage, he was immediately taken down by Yugiri. The robot, seeing its opponent suddenly die for no apparent reason, cautiously requested a ceasefire from Yugiri. On this side, the sage Lion, being immortal, did not die even after the hero's high-damage explosion. She was very curious about Yugiri's abilities, so she had someone follow him and Dano. Returning to Yugiri, his unreasonable power forced the robot to kneel and beg for mercy. For that reason, the robot agreed to help him with everything within its power in exchange for its life. Yugiri simply wanted to return to the old world, but this was beyond the robot's capabilities. The robot could only return to its own world, and of course it couldn't take him along. Yogiri was too dangerous. Taking him back would be akin to bringing death to its world. However, it could help answer how he could return to the old world. The world he was standing in was at the lowest level, and to climb up he needed the original world's coordinates and a massive energy source to activate it. As long as he had those two things, the robot would definitely help him and Dano return to the old world. That night, while tracking Yogiri's traces, the guards discovered that the male sage had died. The manner of death was exactly like the heroes and bandits who had died before, without a wound, without any sign of being attacked. Shion still didn't believe this was due to Yogiri because the sage could resist sudden death magic. Layan, however, thought otherwise. She immediately gathered the Immortal Legion to head straight to Yogiri's location. While Dano was sound asleep, Yogiri quietly eliminated the wild beasts and bandits who had planned to attack them the previous night. Due to using too many spells, Yogiri showed signs of back pain, knee aches and numb hands early the next morning. Dano thought that if he got tired from using many spells, his abilities would have limits, but no, he was just a bit tired and could use them as many times as he wanted. Well, this is the end for the sages. At this rate, anyone who encounters Yogiri is doomed. Thanks to the enormous amount of money they swiped from the fat guy, Yogiri and Dano booked the highest 5-star hotel in the city as their temporary shelter. When they arrived, they accidentally ran into their classmate named Ruki. This young man wasn't leveling up in the primal forest but was instead indulging in debauchery with a harem of slaves behind him. Yogiri thought this young man possessed some incredible power to be so confident, but in reality, Ruki had been confident since their old world. Every day in class, Yogiri would doze off, so he didn't know that Ruki was quite the ladies' man. Ruki's good looks and playboy demeanor made many girls swoon over him in the old world. Returning to the main issue, Dana was very curious about why Ruki didn't go level up in the primeval forest with the rest of the class. Actually, here's how it is. Ruki is the one who controls that power, allowing him to turn those below his level into slaves. About a week ago, when Ruki was alone in a bar, a bespectacled classmate with the mental ability approached him to start a conversation. The bespectacled one has the ability to offer advice and discover the hidden skills of each type of superpower. The sage issued a directive that if no one in the class reaches the sage position within 100 days, all will be turned into livestock. Of course, the bespectacled one does not want that to happen. He suggested that Ruki should break away to level up instead of following the class. First, Ruki should use all the money he has to buy as many level 1 slaves as possible. If Ruki's slaves win, the defeated will become his slaves, and the experience gained will also return to buff Rookie to level up. This means Rookie's strength always increases exponentially. While Rookie was talking to the two people his subordinates were fighting, he just needs to breathe and can confidently level up rapidly. Rookie suggested that Dano become his lava, making the girls behind him blush with jealousy. Jealous or not, Dano didn't care. She refused while tactfully finding words to send him away. It's been 3 days, and Yogiri hasn't woken up. Feeling that the room was quite stuffy, Dano wanted to go outside for some fresh air. However, when she opened the window, she discovered that Lane's undead army was using armored vehicles to attack the citizens. Going down to the street now would only mean death, so she preferred to sleep peacefully on the 5-star hotel bed. At this moment, the guardian spirit detected someone with murderous intent approaching Dano, but it did not manifest. There's only one way to deal with such matters: call Yogiri. Just a few minutes later, Yogiri sprang up, opened the door, and stepped out of the room. He closed his eyes, sensed the murderous intent, and quickly discovered a woman who was hiding and directing her murderous intent towards Dano's room. Without much thought, Yogiri immediately chanted a spell, causing the blonde woman to collapse on the spot. He calmly walked into the room to tell Dano about this, then picked up the phone to call the reception and report that someone had fainted in the hallway. Dano immediately recognized her as one of Rookie's 5 slaves. Not wanting any trouble, Yogiri told Dano to quickly pack up and escape. Meanwhile, Rookie was fighting a scorpion monster on the 100th floor. With hundreds of skills acquired from his slaves, he quickly defeated the scorpion and turned it into a slave. At this moment, Rookie also discovered the disappearance of the blonde-haired girl. He carefully checked the cameras but couldn't understand why Rookie suddenly fell. She couldn't have been ambushed because she is an assassin with invisibility abilities. The dark-skinned girl saw this and said that the blonde wanted to make Rookie happy, so she went to deal with Dano for daring to refuse the master's invitation. Upon hearing this, Rookie immediately ordered the remaining 2 slaves to quickly go to Dano, capture her, and bring her back so he could investigate the cause of the incident. Meanwhile, the Sage Lion is still busy battling the Dark Demon. Anything that touches its body gets eroded, but Lion's recovery speed is faster than the erosion. She has tried to attack multiple times, but still cannot stop the Dark Demon from advancing into the city. While fleeing, Dano and Yogiri were blocked by the captain of Rookie's harem squad. She received orders from Rookie to bring Dano back, so she imprisoned the two in an ice prison. Just 2 seconds later, Yogiri broke through the ice, much to the astonishment of the blue-haired woman. Dano saw him do it so easily, she thought the ice was soft, but when she touched it, she nearly got frostbite. In reality, Yogiri had already killed the ice and then simply pushed it aside to step out. The blue-haired woman thought he was talking nonsense, so she continued to prepare her attack on the 2 of them. But this time, before she could finish casting her spell, Yogiri chanted an incantation that killed the ice block. Next, he chanted a spell to neutralize the staff and threatened the blue-haired woman that if she moved even half a step, her fate would be the same as the staff that just broke. He curiously asked about her method of casting spells. The truth is that a sorcerer can only cast spells with the staff, so she always hides a spare one in a place where no one can steal it. Just as Dano drew out the staff, a shadow appeared from the ceiling and unexpectedly attacked Dano. Even more surprising was that Dano's martial instinct suddenly awakened. She swiftly took down the puppet, finishing it off right in front of Yogiri. The green-haired one intended to cast a spell at this moment, but no magic could match the speed of Yogiri's incantation. The lolly girl ordered the puppet army to forcibly bring Darnell back, but before they could do anything, they all fell like an August rain. When the 2 of them opened the door and reached the stairs, she could only cry and beg, then revealed the whole truth about Yuki's group. Meanwhile, Yuki discovered everything that had just happened through the camera. Not only was he unafraid, but he also wanted to lure Yogiri to a suitable place to kill him. A swarm of fleas under Yuki's command flew in to surround Yogiri. Actually, he could kill them if he wanted to, but if these things fell on his head, it would be disgusting. So he decided that the best strategy was to run away. This inadvertently made Yuki think that he wouldn't be able to use his powers when surrounded. He immediately ordered the swarm of fleas to take Yogiri's life. Who would have thought that was the last thing he would say? Yogiri used the killing intent emanating from the fleas to kill him. Now, there's an additional useful piece of information about Yogiri's abilities. He doesn't need to see his target to cast a spell. As long as he desires, he can eliminate the enemy no matter where they are. With Yuki's death, all of his slaves were freed. The black woman, now free, decided to continue her journey wandering the world. However, when she opened the door, everything in front of her had been wiped out. The cause, of course, was the dark demon over there. Lion accidentally encountered the black woman and conveniently drank some of her blood, turning her into his subordinate. Meanwhile, the city below had become the territory of zombies led by the leader of the immortal army. Yogiri thought zombies only existed in The Walking Dead, but who would have thought they also existed in this backward world? Lion brought his immortal army to the city because he wanted to verify what Yogiri's abilities could and could not do. However, what Lion wanted to know most was whether the young man named Yogiri could kill an immortal vampire. Returning to the duo Yogiri and Darnell, given the current situation, he couldn't save all the people in the city. So the best option was for the 2 of them to run away. Meanwhile, the squad leader was using the lives of the city's residents to threaten the mayor. With no other choice, he had to hand over the key for him to spare their lives. The squad leader used a loudspeaker to order all the zombies to stop. However, immediately after he demanded that the city's residents hunt down Darnell and Yogiri. In 1 hour, everyone must bring the two to the central square. If they fail to bring the two here on time, the zombies will be activated once again. Currently, he has sealed the city's barrier, blocking all escape routes, so even if people want to, they cannot run away. Now they are left with only two final choices, either bring the two here on time, or accept becoming zombies. To avoid killing innocent people, Yogiri decided to hide somewhere until the storm passes. Darnell couldn't understand why they had to get involved in such troubles. Yogiri thought the reason they were being pursued was probably because he accidentally killed the sage, and he promised that from now on he would not kill recklessly to avoid getting into trouble. The two hadn't managed to hide before a group of people found them. The people facing death had gradually lost their humanity. He warned them that if they came closer they would die, but one person stubbornly charged forward, and of course the result was that he died. The remaining two were so scared that they turned and ran away. Yogiri was certain that the leader thought he wouldn't dare kill civilians, which is why he forced them to pursue him. If that bastard thought so, then he was wrong. He decided to go with Darnell to the central square to settle everything. He saw him coming to sacrifice himself, thinking he would do so for the city's people. However, Yogiri bluntly said, there was no such thing as that. In fact, he came here to ask him to open the city's barrier so he could take the train to the capital. Yogiri's calmness made the squad leader exclaim, "Are you stupid? It seems this guy hasn't realized the seriousness of the situation yet. According to negotiation rules, you need something to exchange if you want to bargain, so no matter how annoying it is, he will let the squad leader live." Oh my. For the first time, a powerless guy dared to be so bold, making him so angry that veins popped on his forehead. He ordered the immortal army to simultaneously charge and attack. In less than a second, the immortal army was completely wiped out. The mayor was scared out of his wits and begged Yogiri to spare his life. He had nothing to do with the captain's assassination attempt. The captain still couldn't understand how Yogiri could kill the undead. It's truly absurd for someone who is already dead to die again. Yogiri said a simple sentence, but it was incredibly cool. I am the one who decides what it means to die. Movement is life, stopping is death. The captain was someone who was fearless. He cast a spell to transform into Batman to attack Yogiri. However, before he could successfully transform, Yogiri had already taken him down. The mayor didn't dare to play with fire, so he immediately revealed all the information he had. The one who ordered the captain of the immortal army to attack the city was the sage Lane. At this moment, Darnell's aunt announced that a group of people being controlled was heading towards the Central Park. Their murderous intent was so intense that Yogiri felt a chill down his spine. However, this time it wasn't zombies but the citizens of the city. The mayor quickly used the barrier key to block the mind control spell but was unsuccessful. This proved that the sage Lane was directly influencing the barrier. Meanwhile, Lane was witnessing the immense power of Yogiri, a power surpassing even that of a sage, the holy sword, and mythical creatures. This time, it was a bit different from the previous incident. Lane deliberately linked the killing intent with the citizens, so he couldn't track her down to kill her. It was as if Lane was trying to test his abilities. Previously someone had done the same thing, and it would only end when he killed Lion. Just as Lane predicted, the Dark Demon was boldly stepping into the city center. She created countless clones without killing intent, aimed at Yogiri to avoid being eliminated by him. They will attack once the Dark Demon is killed. Noticing the Dark Demon getting closer, Darnell asked if he could do anything about that shapeless monster. She thought he would answer, "No, I can't," but who would have thought he said, "Yes, I can." Just after those two familiar words, the Dark Demon suddenly came to a halt. At the same time, countless red lights descended upon the city like meteor showers. With his extremely sharp vision, Darnell quickly realized that the red lights, falling from the sky, were actually Lion. According to the mayor, Lion's super regeneration ability allows her to create countless clones. This might seem difficult to deal with, but as long as Yogiri is directly targeted, he will find a way to handle it. With his simulation ability, the mayor quickly predicted where Lane's clones were about to land. Moreover, he has another ability, which is to freely teleport within the city he manages. As expected, Lion's clones landed at the location where the three had teleported to. Thanks to the weapon given by the holy robot the other day, the ant was able to easily block Lion's deadly attack. This weapon can transform at will and is also extremely durable. Since one clone attacked Lane, all similar entities simultaneously perished. Lane couldn't believe that the immortal vampire had truly died. She intended to attack once more, but before she could cast her spell, her real body in another world had already died. Since the real body had died, the clone of Lane also ceased to exist. She died without understanding the reason for her death. What did Jogigi rely on to kill her? Before Lane completely died, she mentioned that thanks to this, she could now save that person. At the same time, a petite girl was unexpectedly resurrected inside the coffin. A film appeared containing images of Lion. Lion said that if the girl saw this video, then her plan had been a complete success. The girl was the entity created by Lion but had no memories of Jogigi. Lion did this to avoid being killed by Jogigi, and indeed it worked. The battle was over, and the city returned to its usual peace. Darnell thanked the mayor for the car and then set off on his way. This young man Jogigi, apart from handling dangers, is otherwise quite useless. Who would sleep like the dead and leave his friend Darnell struggling down the hill like that? While Darnell was worried for her life as she was about to crash into a rock, Jogigi was dreaming about his sister from the past. It turns out that Jogigi and his sister are not related by blood. He is a monster that was experimented on in a cursed laboratory called Alpha Omega. Since none of the scientists dared to approach Jogigi, they sent someone else with teaching skills to educate him. Jogigi has the ability to kill his opponents just by thinking about it, so if he is not properly nurtured, Earth will face a catastrophic apocalypse. After 49 steps, before entering Jogigi's world, the sister was extremely shocked to find that the monster the scientist mentioned was actually a little boy. The sister immediately picked him up and threw him outside to play freely. At this age he should be having fun and dancing, not sitting still in a room. Jogigi didn't say anything but just pointed towards her. He didn't intend to kill his sister, but aimed to kill the demon that had been following her since she arrived here. There was a pile of noodles in the house, but the boy didn't even know how to use them. Jogigi had neither a father nor a mother, so Takato decided to name him as she wished. Looking at the boy's face, she was reminded of the neighbor's dog, so she decided to name him Jogigi. Jogigi not only didn't complain but also added Takato's surname to his name. From that moment on, the boy's name Alpha Omega was officially Takato Jogigi. Waking up in a daze, the first thing Jogigi saw was a huge rock right in front of him. If he couldn't move forward, he decided to go backward and find another way out. However, the two of them didn't know that a massive dragon was blocking the back of their car. The two of them got out of the car and quickly faced the dragon, and as for the outcome with this dragon, you all already know. It had just taken off when Jogigi made it crash into the deep abyss. Next, a swarm of fire dragons was flocking towards Jogigi. Darnell thought this was the end, but Jogigi said there's no way it could end like this. He just needed to tell them all to die, and the dragons flying in the sky fell like autumn leaves. When all the lesser dragons had died, their king finally appeared. A thunder dragon flew in front of the two of them, staring at them without doing anything. Jogigi didn't kill it either because it didn't emit any murderous intent. After a moment, the thunder dragon unexpectedly turned its head and left. It flew at an extremely slow pace, hoping Jogigi would let it go. However, he told it to turn its head back, or it would end up like the other dragons, causing the thunder dragon to pause in midair for a moment. The majestic golden thunder dragon from earlier had now transformed into a petite little girl kneeling in front of the two of them. The little girl, Attila, had the dragon attack Jogigi and Darnell to test whether they were worthy of the holy sword. She thought they were searching for the holy sword inside the canyon, but that wasn't the case. Since it seemed unrelated to him, Jogigi asked to take his leave. Seeing a talented individual about to leave, Attila promised to guide them to the capital. Moreover, since the holy sword and the sage are arch enemies, the two might find a way to return to their old world.